I welcome my select viewers to my 96th video of my YouTube channel Writer Sandhanam Speaks. A few weeks back, I had talked about my literary master Dr. Samuel Johnson of the 18th century, England. Today I am going to talk about his predecessor, the 16th century French essayist, arguably the first modern essayist. His name is MONTAIGNE, MONTAIGNE. Please put up with my Indian accent. When I came across his name in my college days, I wanted to read him. Later on, when I laid my hands on his book, translated into English, I could not follow his footsteps because of his archaic and unique style. I could not understand him with my insufficient knowledge of the nuances of English language at that time. So I thought of discontinuing in reading him. But now and then suddenly a statement from his essay will crop up from nowhere and it will hit me hard for its profundity. So I continued reading Montaigne. One of the very profound statements that I came across from that book was, a French soldier meets his emperor Louis XIV and requests him to be dismissed from service. When asked about the reason for his dismissal, for his request for dismissal, the soldier told the emperor, "Your Majesty, either I am engaging myself in war all the time or preparing to engage myself for war. So where is the time for contemplation?" So contemplation is not a prerogative of the royal king, it is also the prerogative of a soldier who asked this emperor to dismiss him from service because he wanted to contemplate on the meaning of life. Today I am going to present a small script on Montaigne with a caption. It is also a quotation from Montaigne. "We must lend ourselves to others, but give ourselves only to ourselves." This is the caption. First, let me explain the meaning of essay, a new genre, that is genre, a new type of literary format introduced by Montaigne. It is a French word, essays, E-S-S-A-I-S, meaning trials, attempts or probings. Montaigne, introducing this new type of literary writing, probed into his inner self and brought out the good, bad and ugly side of mankind. And he was brutally frank in his expositions of human behavior with its strengths and weaknesses. When his critics caviled at his self-portrayal, his retort was, "If they complain about my writing too much of myself, I in turn complain that they do not even think about themselves." My comment: one can do things in groups, but one can only think alone. When this extraordinary intellectual was made mayor of a city, Bordeaux, he did not abandon of his pastime of confining himself into his library room upstairs, where he spent his time in reading books of ancient wisdom, Greek, Latin, etc. His reading led to his contemplation on human life as well as his relationship with nature. This made him cogitate about his reading, which ultimately led him to contribute to his writing his own essays. These essays have been brought out in 3 books which have been profusely quoted ever since. Though Montaigne discharged his public duties as a mayor, he in his privacy gave himself to reading and writing, thus making the statement as above quoted. I again quote this sentence, which is the caption of my script. We must lend ourselves to others, gentlemen, but give ourselves only to ourselves. I am hereby quoting a few anecdotes and statements of Montaigne under some headings. This is only to give readers who have not read him a hang of his writing, full of anecdotes, witty remarks, and quotations from ancient authors. He was later on praised by another illustrious essayist, Emerson, as Montaigne is the frankest and the honestest of all writers. I for one will add a caution for the present day readers that his style may look a little archaic, but if one, as I struggled first with his style, has some patience, may find in him a mine of wisdom. After all, as an Italian writer, Buffon said, style is the man himself. I am going to read out a few topics. Number 1, under the topic author and the reader. I desire therein to be delineated in mine own genuine, simple and ordinary fashion, without contention, art or study, for it is myself I portray. Thus, gentle reader, myself I am the groundwork of my book. 2. How the soul discharges her passions. Montaigne humorously narrates the innocent and passionate anger of an ancient race who started to shoot arrows whenever the heaven started thundering, thinking their counteraction will bring down God's anger. Montaigne here quotes the Greek author Plutarch. We ought not angry be at God death, for he cares not who bears an ugly tooth, meaning God is not bothered about man being angry against him. He completes the essay with a message, but we shall never rail enough against the disorder and unruliness of our mind. True. 3. On idleness. The mind that hath no fixed bound will easily lose itself, for, as we say, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. 4. Of liars. Verily, lying is an ill and detestable vice. Nothing makes us men, and no other means keeps us bound to one another but our word. Meaning, trust in words between one another keep the world going. My comment: animals do not lie against each other, unlike men. 5. To learn how to die. I am going to read a passage from this book. Cicero hath said that to philosophize is no other thing than for a man to prepare himself to death, which is the reason that study and contemplation doth in some sort withdraw our soul from us and severally confine it from the body, which is a kind of apprenticeship and a resemblance of death. Or else it is that all the wisdom and discourse of the world doth in the end resolve upon this point, to teach us not to fear to die. As I had warned earlier, his Montaigne's style is very difficult at the first sight, first reading. But if you are accustomed to reading him, then you will know what he means to say. My comment. My Tamil sage Thaimanavar goes one step further and says, Deham irum என்று ஜடர் தேம்புவது ஏன்? நித்திரையில் ஊகம் அறிந்தால் பயம்தான் உண்டோ பராபரமே. Translated, why foolish man laments about the death of his body? Does he feel his body during his peaceful sleep? My comment. Indian Vedanta terms it as the third stage of man, waking, dreaming and deep sleep. Accordingly, man dies daily during sleep and is reborn on waking. So, why cry over the death of the body? Montaigne in that paragraph talks about the ultimate aim of the philosophy. The ultimate aim of the philosophy is to how to face death. Anyway, Montaigne solaces finally himself. Thus, it is uncertain where death looks for us. Let us expect her everywhere. The premeditation of death is a foretelling of liberty. To a person who wants to commit suicide, Montaigne cites an incident. When one of his soldiers complained to the commander Julius Caesar that he was tired of life and wanted to commit suicide, Caesar replied, Dost thou think to be alive then? Meaning, death puts an end to life and there is no point in committing suicide. However, to go back to Indian Vedanta, including the statement of Buddha, who said, unless one becomes enlightened while alive, nobody could avoid rebirth. So, suicide is no solution. It is a vicious circle. Regarding Caesar, Montaigne cites another interesting anecdote which I read in my earlier book. While Caesar with his small number of soldiers was traveling on the sea, confronts the sea pirates at a distance. Had the pirates reached Caesar and his men, perhaps Caesar could have met with defeat and death. But Caesar, gathering his guts, shouted, This is Caesar, surrender. Out of fear, the enemy surrendered. This confirms Shakespeare's version. Discretion is the better part of valor. Talking of Shakespeare, the introduction of the book says Shakespeare loved Montaigne and incorporated in his drama The Tempest Montaigne's lines from his essay on cannibals. Not only this, Shakespeare owned a copy of Montaigne book signed by the author. While the greatest dramatist Shakespeare read Montaigne himself, the greatest essayist, why not we, the lesser mortals, go through some of his essays and get enlightened? Finally, to do justice to my caption, I would quote another modern sage, U.G. Krishnamurti, whom I heard him in person. He said, To be yourself requires extraordinary intelligence. You are blessed with that intelligence. Nobody can give it to you and nobody can get it from you. Take it from you. He who expresses himself through his own way is a natural man. Montaigne thus expressed himself naturally and truthfully of the phenomenal world with its pleasure and pain, rationality and irrationality, and became the pioneer of essay writing full of wit and wisdom. Thank you.